The United Nations, thought of by millions of people to be a benign organization with only our best interest at heart, turns out to be one of the main engines of the cabal. It is where deals are made, where money is laundered, and where dictators are kept steadily in their seats. The UN works with a multitude of NGOs, some officially under the umbrella of the UN, others more covertly. The term NGO, non-governmental organization, was actually invented by the UN back in 1945. You will soon understand why. It encompasses charities and non-profits, but also lobby groups for big corporations such as the World Economic Forum. At this moment, 5,500 NGOs have consultative status with the United Nations Economic and Social Council. This means they have a formal relationship with the UN and are allowed to participate in the work of the UN. They are all independent from government control and answer to one entity only, the United Nations. Interesting fact in and of itself, don't you think? What we stumbled upon during our research was an enormous cash flow between these NGOs. It seems like they all support each other's work, like one big happy family. Well, that is mostly a sign of money laundering. Mind you, there are big names involved here. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Buffett Foundation, the Ford Foundation, the Turner Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation, the Clinton Foundation. Big names moving around even bigger amounts of money. Their financial reports seem impeccable, of course, but the money flow gets lost in the abundance of NGOs involved, the non-specific destination of the billions of dollars moved around like grants to recipients. What does that mean? And the existence of alliances of NGOs that makes things even less transparent. Like, for instance, the Fund for Shared Insight, a group of 7 funders, and a pool of financial and other resources to make grants to improve philanthropy. Nice and vague. Let's have a look at the Rockefeller Foundation. Did you know there's also the Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors, the Rockefeller Brothers Fund, the Richard Rockefeller Fellowship, the David Rockefeller Fund, the Rockefeller Family Fund, the Winthrop Rockefeller Foundation, and the Eileen Rockefeller Growell Family Fund? They all move around tidal waves of money, I'm talking billions, often between foundations set up by members of the same family. Not only the Rockefellers show us clearly how to keep it in the family, Warren Buffett is another great example, with the Susan Thompson Buffett Foundation, named after Warren's wife, the Sherwood Foundation, set up by their daughter Susan Alice, the Howard G. Buffett Foundation, with their son Howard as chairman and CEO, the Novo Foundation, co-funded by their son Peter and his wife Jennifer, and the Buffett Early Childhood Fund, set up by Warren's daughter again, Susan Alice. In July 2020, Warren Buffett announced that he would, once again, it's sort of an annual thing, be giving 15.9 million Class B shares of his mega company Berkshire Hathaway to 5 charities. Take a wild guess. All of these shares, worth $2.9 billion, went to the very same Susan Thompson Buffett Foundation, the Sherwood Foundation, the Howard G. Buffett Foundation, the Novo Foundation, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Now, the latter is not a big surprise, as Warren Buffett had taken Bill Gates under his wings back in 1991. when his mother set up a meeting between her 37-year-old son and the excessively rich and powerful tycoon Warren Buffett. A deal was made, and from that moment on, the destinies of Bill and Warren were intertwined forever. More about which soon. Since 2006, Warren Buffett has moved $37 billion in shares to, well, basically his children, without paying a dime of tax. Why don't you try to donate some money to your children without the tax administration stepping in to claim a big chunk? By the way, the Buffett Foundation is known for its secrecy, often appearing under grand acknowledgements as an anonymous donor, which is rather strange when it concerns donations of many millions or even billions of dollars, simply unaccounted for. But like we said at the intro of this episode, these NGOs, no matter how big and powerful, are independent from government control. Let that sink in. The Buffett Foundation invests heavily in reproductive health and family planning grants across the world, including substantial investments in abortion and contraceptives. In the 1990s, the Buffett Foundation helped finance the development of the abortion drug RU486. Between 2001 and 2014, the foundation contributed over $1.5 billion to abortion-related causes, including at least $427 million to Planned Parenthood and $168 million to the National Abortion Federation. Remember from part 6 that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation gave $89.5 million to Planned Parenthood? Were you shocked when you heard this number? Well, the Buffett Foundation makes the Gates Foundation pale in comparison. It gave Planned Parenthood $427 million. Why are all these most wealthy men alive so obsessed with killing babies? What we discovered upon investigating the largest and most influential NGOs was that they all primarily focus on reproductive health. In our previous episode, we showed you what that really means in practice. Eugenics, depopulation, pillaging less developed countries for their precious minerals, and money laundering. One of the brilliant moves when it comes to money laundering is the transfer to subsidiaries, also known as child companies, to make things even less transparent. Let's have a look at some examples. Ever heard of Arabella Advisors? Probably not. Yet you should. Here's why. Arabella Advisors is a for-profit consulting company founded in 2005 by former Clinton administration appointee Eric Kessler. According to Arabella's own website, they provide strategic guidance for effective philanthropy. Effective philanthropy, huh? Let's see what that means. Arabella claims to have carried out more than 150 projects for clients that are worth more than $100 billion. Not exactly a small fish, right? What else? Arabella manages 4 non-profits. And this is where it gets interesting. The New Venture Fund, the 1630 Fund, the Hopewell Fund, and the Windward Fund. These 4 non-profits serve as accelerators for yet another range of non-profits that, according to several investigative sources, are fake organizations that are little more than a website and a suite address. Now, we dove into Arabella and its 4 minions because we saw them appear time and again in the midst of the giants, such as the Gates Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation, etc. As we'd never heard of them before, we decided to look into them. It took us many 24/7 weeks. Never before were financial reports so confusing, so non-transparent. Arabella Advisors and its 4 non-profits use tax regulations to the max, moving money from C3s to C4s, which is more profitable when it comes to tax deductions. Thanks to the pass-through arrangements, funding is passed from one organization to another, making it difficult to trace where a donor's money ends up. As we searched for weeks, our astonishment grew. Then we ran into the work of Capital Research Center. Our findings collaborated with those of their researchers like Hayden Ludwig, who described Arabella as a dark money monster and the left's best-kept secret. Arabella is the left's best-kept secret that proves something money and politics reporters have failed to notice. Non-profits, not the parties, drive our politics. Since Arabella's inception, it's sponsored roughly 340 groups. These fake groups rarely disclose their relationship to Arabella Advisors or any of its 4 in-house non-profits. Nevertheless, many of them accept donations from the public, funds which go to Arabella's non-profits. This system also allows these groups to hide their funders, since it's virtually impossible to trace individual grants to Arabella's 4 non-profits to any particular fake group. These 340 pop-up groups are slick websites posing as grassroots activist groups that can appear and vanish in an instant. Since 2006, this network has pumped a stunning $2.4 billion into politics. Between 2008 and 2018, Arabella's 4 non-profits paid the company nearly $103 million in contracting and management services fees. Interesting money flow, but it gets more interesting. According to various independent researchers, Arabella and its 4 non-profits equal dark money. Dark money is money raised to influence elections. This money is raised by non-profit organizations that do not have to disclose the identity of their donors. In other words, a complete lack of transparency where it concerns millions and millions of dollars, all aimed at one goal and one goal alone: influencing the outcome of elections, or more concrete, making sure the Democrats win at all cost. Let's see if we can find any evidence for such a crude accusation, shall we? Let's have a look at Arabella's 4 non-profits. Any clues there to such conspiracy theories? First, there is the 1630 Fund. In 2018, it received massive anonymous donations. It later turned out that $26.7 million had come from the New Venture Fund, one of its sister funds. The 1630 Fund, the 501c4 advocacy wing of Arabella's non-profit network, is a massive dark money group that boosted Democrats in the 2018 midterm elections with $140 million. The 1630 Fund's biggest single donation, made anonymously, was for $51.7 million, more than the group had ever raised before in an entire year before President Donald Trump was elected. One of 1613 Fund's projects, or pop-up groups, is Demand Justice, an anti-Trump organization. At the beginning of 2018, Demand Justice did not exist, but given the fear that President Trump would nominate federal judges, Arabella popped it into existence with more than $2.5 million from George Soros's Open Society Foundations. It was the same organization that blasted Justice Brett Kavanaugh during his Supreme Court confirmation. Interesting. What about number 2, the Hopewell Fund? The Hopewell Fund is a 501c3 non-profit created in 2015. It primarily manages pro-abortion projects, including Equity Forward, which attacks the Trump administration for opposing the left-wing abortion agenda. Okay. What about number 3? The New Venture Fund. The New Venture Fund, located at the same address, the same suite, number 300, a platform for philanthropists. Between 2014 and 18, New Venture Fund received $1.6 billion in donations. In 2018 alone, this was $395 million, for which they hired consultants for a total sum of $28.3 million, of which $90 million went straight back to Arabella Advisors, his mother company. To give you a nice little example, New Venture Fund sponsors its own project, Media Democracy Fund, located at the same address in DC and the exact same suite, number 300. Media Democracy Fund describes itself as a catalyst for an open, secure and equitable internet. God knows what that has to do with charity. Well, we can tell you why it was set up in the first place. To push Obama's net neutrality. In other words, to increase the government's control of the internet. We're talking censorship. Media Democracy Fund is run by a few young people with no surnames and no real profile pictures. Still, since its founding in 2006, it has made more than $34 million. Oh, and surprise! It is supported by the Open Society Foundations of George Soros, the multi-billionaire we showed in part 2 of The Fall of the Cabal, the man responsible for his destabilizing and dividing mega projects, such as the illegal alien invasion, Black Lives Matter, and Antifa. Yet another interesting little detail about New Venture Fund is their interest in America Votes, yet another one of their fake pop-ups. New Venture Fund gave a $2.35 million grant to America Votes in 2018, which is a lot of money for a business that, according to its own website, aims to advance progressive policies and win elections. Win elections? Wow, I mean, that is weird. I thought we were looking at charity funds here, right? Well, obviously not. Oh, a New Venture Fund's sister, the 1630 Fund, gave no less than $27 million to America Votes. All you have to do is take a look at who sponsors American Votes. Take a wild guess, my friends. Democratic Attorneys General Association, Democratic Governors Association, Democratic Legislative Campaign Committee, Democrats.com, National Democratic Redistricting Committee. Oh, and let's not forget Planned Parenthood and Stand Up America, committed to resisting Trump's agenda, and unrigging the corrupt system that put him in the White House. Let's make something clear once and for all. First, the corrupt system is exactly what President Trump is fighting. It is the corrupt system that tried to prevent Donald J. Trump from entering the White House. Furthermore, whether you like Trump or not is not relevant. He is your president. He was elected twice by a majority of the American people. That is called democracy. Now, just because you hate Trump doesn't mean he was put in the White House by mistake. There was no Russian collusion, remember? Years of investigations have gone by in which the Democrats did everything they possibly could think of to get rid of their opponent. Well, guess what? It didn't work. They failed miserably. You want to know why? Because, and I will say this again loud and clear, because Donald J. Trump was elected by the majority of the American people to be their president. That's why. So my question to the Democratic Trump haters out there is, which part of democracy don't you understand? The amount of money that is moved around within the limits of the law is staggering. The more we studied this topic, the more we realized that in order to drain the swamp in philanthropy land, laws would have to be rewritten. Over the past 5 years, the David and Lucille Packard Foundation donated no less than $245 million to NGOs working in the area of reproductive health. Remember these names. They will return again and again. Once you understand who they are and how they play the world stage, moving assets around, dominating national policies, you will never again think of these titans as philanthropists. Take Pathfinder. The Pathfinder Fund, fully into reproductive health and family planning, we now know what that means, was founded in 1957 by Clarence Gamble, heir to the Procter & Gamble fortune and advocate of birth control, forced sterilization of mental patients, and eugenics. Pathfinder received $673 million over the past 5 years to be used for their reproductive health projects. Where did this money come from? Well, their main donors and grantors are the Gates Foundation, the Buffett Foundation, the MacArthur Foundation, the Hewlett Foundation, the Packard Foundation, the Ford Foundation, Vanguard, Fidelity, Schwab, Tides, Global Health Initiatives, part of the WHO, and USAID, that awarded $970 million to Pathfinder in the form of grants and contracts between 2005 and 2021. Other donors are the Novo Foundation, Open Society Foundations from George Soros, the Passport Foundation, Robertson Foundation, Rockefeller Brothers Fund, Rockefeller Foundation, and Wellspring Philanthropic Fund. We cannot stress sufficiently to please do your own research. Simply take one of these sheets and dive into these names. Take Fidelity. According to its IRS Form 990 for 2018, Fidelity Investments Charitable Gift Fund moved nearly $107 million to two of Arabella's nonprofits, the New Venture Fund, $73 million, and Hopewell Fund, $34 million. We can, however, assure you that you will get stuck in the spiderweb of C3s and C4s, and that's where you will meet the end of transparency, if it ever was there in the first place. You see, Even though you get some information through the IRS Form 990, the umbrella company Arabella is a for-profit organization, which means they do not have to fill in a 990 form. That's where darkness sets in. As in, indeed, dark money. Okay, let's have a look at the Rockefeller Foundation. I showed the massive power empire of the Rockefellers in my first documentary about the fall of the cabal, in part 2. Now please bear in mind that the Rockefeller Foundation 990 forms contain between 350 and 400 pages each year. So what we did, after having studied each and every one of them, we narrowed it down for you by highlighting some anomalies, those donations that jumped out for their numbers and or recipients. The Rockefeller Foundation gave $666,666 to the City University of New York. Interesting number, associated with the number of the beast. Okay, I'm sure that's just a coincidence, right? The Rockefeller Foundation gave $4 million to DataKind, an NGO for data science. Funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Open Society Foundations, Microsoft, Rockefeller Foundation, Hewlett Foundation, MasterCard, Google, and others. A data science company? Then it gave $25.7 million to the Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa. More about this scandalous fraud in part 9. In 2018 alone, the Rockefeller Foundation invested no less than $4.1 billion. Most of the money went to investment companies such as BlackRock, with $4.4 billion in securities apart from charitable purposes. To cut a long and boring story short, let's put it this way. After God knows how many hours of research into the financial reports of these NGOs, we came to the following conclusions. All charity NGOs, in which millions of dollars are moved around, have nothing to do with charity whatsoever. They are simply the perfect business model for money laundering. In spite of the millions or even billions of dollars involved, no tax is paid. The astronomical amounts of money are, apart from being laundered, transferred to support the Democrats and their agendas. Think abortion facilities and other family planning and population control topics. As such, it is the non-profits that drive US policies, not the political parties. Most charity money goes directly to Wall Street, to Nasdaq and other stock exchanges, where it is invested in, well, anything lucrative. Those are projects you do not get access to unless you have a certain clearance level. It could range from legal to illegal investments such as drug and human trafficking. Arabella helps its clients implement centre-left political agendas through sometimes risky programming investments. So, our question to you is this. How do you feel about your donation to charity being used to avoid tax, to be invested in risky programming investments, which could be anything, and to go straight to the Democrat Party, either to support a presidential election or to rig one, or to help fund one of their projects such as population control, or any other means or method to facilitate the New World Order. How does that make you feel? How can it be that these so-called charities don't have to account for so much money, both where it came from and where it went to? How can it be that these NGOs that move billions around work from a simple suite? There are countless consultancies involved in charity that are granted millions of dollars to do their work. Why, for heaven's sake? I mean, suppose you advise individuals and companies on how to invest money into charity. Don't you simply get paid for your services by your clients? Why does an Office for Data Science receive millions and millions of dollars? To do what? And why is it a non-profit organization? Why does it have major sponsors such as the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Open Society Foundations, Microsoft, Rockefeller Foundation, Hewlett Foundation, MasterCard, Google? Why do these NGOs form alliances in order to improve philanthropy? How hard is it to pick a fund and donate? The more we dove into the subject, the more we realized just how insane this all was. Within the limits of the law, oh yes, but insane and wrong nevertheless. The UN, with all of its NGOs and charity funds, connected either directly or indirectly, moving billions around, hens and forth, laundering money to their heart's content, investing enormous amounts on the stock market, making more money and even more without ever having to pay a dime of tax. And like I said, they are all independent from government control and answer to one entity alone, the United Nations. Does this mean all NGOs are bad news? Probably not. I'm sure the smaller ones and the local ones have not been dragged into the dark swamp. I'm sure they do great work, real charity. But the big ones, the ones with the multi-million-dollar sign on them, like Oxfam, that held sex orgies with minors in Haiti? Minors as in children? Like the Red Cross, that after a history of discrimination of black and gay people whom they refused to help during times of despair, collected $500 million for Haiti in 2010 after the devastating earthquake and used that money to build 6 houses? When you find out how much the presidents of those NGOs make, will you donate money ever again? So, where does all of the above leave us? In a big, sticky, criminal spider web with hungry spiders everywhere. One of those spiders is the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Follow me to part 8.